Hi, welcome to the third in the series of what you need to know for patch 7.2.5, and this is focusing on Mythic Plus Dungeons. We do Mythic Plus Dungeons, we get gear from it, we get artifact from it. It's our bread and butter as far as Legion goes. Some people run it all day and all night, some of us, like myself, just run it a few times a week, but we're going to run it every week several times, aren't we? Now, there's good news here and there's bad news, and it entirely depends on your perspective. We're going to start off with the keystones themselves. Now, one issue that there has been right from the start of Legion is what happens if you're in a group and someone leaves. Maybe they disconnect, or maybe they just deliberately leave. This leaves you in a bit of a problem. Now, you can't complete your group. You're not going to get to the end of the dungeon. Your key's going to deplete. Sad panda. Rejoice, because in 7.2.5 what will happen if you are unable to complete the dungeon for whatever reason, your keystone, instead of being depleted, will be downgraded by one level for the same dungeon. So if you were doing a plus 10 Neltharian's Lair, you will get a plus 9 Neltharian's Lair keystone. But let's say you do complete the dungeon, but you don't meet the timer. Again, your keystone is not going to be depleted. There's no such thing as a depleted keystone in this patch. Instead, what will happen, again, it will be downgraded by one level, but because you beat that dungeon, it will be for a random dungeon, which in theory could be the same one again. The other thing to bear in mind is with loot. Now, loot is going to work very differently. Some people are not going to like some of the things, some people are going to like some of the things. One thing that a lot of people may not like is the fact that at the moment, or before patch 7.2.5, if you do a dungeon and you beat the timer by some margin, you could get either an extra chest or maybe an extra 2 chests. You could potentially get 3 chests altogether and more chances of loot. That's not happening anymore. If you complete any Mythic Plus dungeon up to and including a plus 15, if you fail to beat the timer, then you get a chest at the end of it which rewards 2 pieces of loot. That is 2 pieces of loot for the group, not each individual player. If you do make the timer, you get 3. That's your lot. There's no additional chests, no multiple pieces of loot for everyone. No, it's 3 pieces of loot for the whole group. But if you push, and that's what Blizzard want us to do, they want us to push the keystone. For every 3 levels above a plus 15 that you complete, you will get an additional piece of loot. So at plus 18, you should be expecting 4 pieces of loot, plus 21, 5 pieces of loot, and so on. That is the only way to get multiple pieces of loot, because what was happening, people were doing dungeons that were well within them. They knew they would 3 chest in the hope that they would get, they knew they would get lots of pieces of gear, and maybe one of them would Titan Forge, and that was an easier way than just pushing higher and higher. Speaking of pushing, that's not going to be quite so easy anymore, because they are also increasing the health and the damage that mobs deal by 10% per level. Previously it was 8%. So you will now find as you push to the higher levels, it's actually going to get tougher. So what's the good news with loot? Well, the good news is they are increasing the cap. At the moment, or at least before patch 7.2.5, the maximum dungeon you can get and get higher item level gear is a plus 10. If you completed a plus 10, then you would get a piece of 890 gear from the dungeon chest if you got gear at all. Baseline, that is. It could, of course, Titan Forge. And if you completed at least 1 plus 10 dungeon, whether or not you beat the timer, then in your weekly cache, you would get a piece of 905 baseline gear. However, in patch 7.2.5, they're going to be raising that cap to 15. So now you can push up to a plus 15 to get the highest item level baseline gear from both the dungeon chests and from your weekly cache. So if you want the highest item level gear from your weekly cache, you now have to do a plus 15. I'm not able to tell you what the item level of the gear in a plus 15 dungeon chest is, or from the weekly cache, because Blizzard haven't announced that yet, and I certainly haven't done it on the PTR. So there you are. Those are the changes for the Mythic Plus Dungeons. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, don't forget to subscribe for further content, share with people you think might be interested, and until next time, I'll see you later.